Well, tongues were wagging on Twitter last night after Imperial Oil, or the ExxonMobil, not quite subsidiary, announced that it was going to write down $1.2 billion of oil and gas assets in Alberta. And so we're going to talk to economist Richard Masson about that. And Richard, my take or my understanding is that this was not oil sands related. This was unconventional, different fields entirely.
From my reading of the press release, exactly. It looks like this is, they had developed a large portfolio of unconventional assets, Duvernay, Montney, and those type of assets that require fracking. And as part of an overall Exxon-led evaluation of their reserves, they took a bunch of write-downs in the US, but also some in Canada related to the lower quality assets.
So I've been interviewing economist Ed Hurst about the U.S. shale play for a long time, and he says now that the shale players need $50 WTI, which is going to be really tough to get. They need that to break even, and that had to have an impact on Imperial Oil's assessment of those unconventional resources.
Yes, I think costs have been going up in the U.S. The challenge to get financing has been a big issue there. When I looked at the Canadian Energy Regulator, let me get the right term these days, report, it was interesting to see that fracking and the Montney in particular are destined to be a big part of the resource development in Canada still for the next 20 years, according to their outlooks. And so one of the reasons is because we can get liquid-rich production, and the key liquid is pentane, which is natural gas condensate, which is used to dilute bitumen to ship to market. So oil sands, the outlook for oil sands growth is still, in the million barrel range before it starts to decline, depending on your forecast. And that requires a lot more diluent. So it's one of the things that's going to keep unconventional plays viable here in Canada. It's an advantage they have relative to the US plays.
Well, we'll keep an eye on this sector going forward. Everything between the pandemic and new technologies and so on, it seems to be in flux, very fluid these days. So we'll talking to you in the near future about other developments, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just one thing after another. It's a very rapidly evolving industry. So companies are really trying to reposition themselves, and of course, Imperial writing down the value of these assets doesn't mean they might not sell them to somebody else to develop. These assets could get developed just later on if prices are more favorable. So companies are repositioning themselves to try and make sure that their future earnings look good.
Appreciate it as always, Richard.
Yeah, no worries, Markham. Take care.